Welcome to Slaying Excel Dragons video number 9. This is the video series that accompanies this book, and we're still in chapter 4. Here are our topics. We're going to talk about page setup. Oh, page setup is so important because page setup determines how the report prints. All right, we're going to cover a bunch of topics here, including page setup for the project we did last video, page setup for multiple pages, and for large spreadsheets. Let's go to our workbook, our Excel start file. If you want to download this, you can click on the link below the video. Now we're going to start in our sheet Store 1. Now this is what we completed last video, and we would like to print it out. Well, the first thing you have to do when you're doing page setup is do print preview. Now here's the deal. Print preview is different in 2010 than it is in earlier versions. What they've done is they've combined the print dialog box and print preview. Now that makes sense, right? Because usually people just print and they don't think about print preview. But now they've combined it. So they're in essence forcing you to look at what it's going to look like before you print it. One of the cooler things they added in 2010. Now the keyboard shortcut for the print dialog box is Ctrl P. And there it is. Ctrl P now opens both print preview and print dialog box. Now if you happen to know the keyboard shortcut for print preview in earlier versions, it was Ctrl F2. And sure enough, now that's programmed to open up print preview and the print dialog box. Now, before we look at this and decide what our print preview, I just want to look at before we look at our print preview and decide how we're going to do our page setup, I want to look at this dialog box. There's the print, there's the printer, and this one is the one I want to look at. Now, print orientation and margins and scaling, those things we're going to do in the page setup dialog box. But they're here also in case you forget. There's also a link to page setup dialog box, which is actually quite handy if you're going back and forth, fixing things, going to print preview and page setup. But I want to look at something here. This is just one of the more powerful features of the print dialog box. You can print the active sheet, which you see right here. That's the button for entire workbook. So you can print all the sheets. Still further, print selection. Now I'm going to click Escape. This is the print dialog box print preview. Whatever you do, do not click this X up here. I personally think they program this incorrectly, because what people do is they think they close this up here, but that closes the whole Excel file. So you either have to use Exit or I use Escape. So now all I'd like to print out is, say, January and February, the names of the products and the totals. So now I go Control P, and I say not active sheet, but print selection. And boom, just like that, I have just the piece that I want. Now I'm going to go back over here, active sheet. So there we have it. Now we got to look. We are in print preview. I can see maybe I want to scale it up a little bit bigger. I would like to do the margin so it's centered horizontally. I would like to add some headers and footers. So let's see how to do that. Now let's check this out. We can get right to page setup this way. There it is. I'm going to click Escape to close that dialog box and Escape, because usually or oftentimes I go straight to page setup because I have an idea of the headers and footers I want. So the keyboard shortcut inside of Excel is, and we saw this in video number 2, Alt, the P for page layout, and the SP for the print page setup dialog box. Now there's lots of features up on the ribbons, but again, I tend to stick to the dialog boxes because then that has everything. All right, I'm going to click Escape, and do it in fast motion. Alt PSP. Now remember, what did we say about Alt keyboard shortcuts? You memorize the ones that you do all the time. All right, so Page Tab. I'm going to say Portrait is fine. Adjust to, I'm going to say 140. Now if that's too big, we'll see, and we'll adjust that. Fit to, we'll come back and talk about that later when we do a large spreadsheet. Now I'm going over to the margins. Now you could do left, top, right, bottom, even headers and footers. But what I like to do is I just come over here and do horizontal. You see this little preview here. Horizontally centered looks real nice. I usually don't select vertically because usually, especially when you have a smaller table, it looks kind of funny in the middle of the page. But it doesn't look funny when you do it horizontally. All right, you could be real specific, but in general, most of the reports I do horizontally works just fine. Let's go over to headers and footers. Now, this is exciting. I love headers and footers because we can actually create headers and footers that are linked to the file name or the sheet name, and they're dynamic. So if you change the sheet names or the file name, the headers and footers will update. Now, there's a couple parts. The top part here is header. The bottom part is footer. This is a preview. There's nothing there right now. This header, these are built-in headers. And then when we'll look at that in just a moment. And then there's custom. Now let's start down here at the footer. Custom, built-in, preview. Let's do a built-in. Now there's a great built-in footer, page 1 of question mark. Now that question mark could be means the total. Right now we only have 1 page, but if you had 10, it would say 1 of 10, 2 of 10, 3 of 10. So the question mark says, I don't know how many there are right currently, but I'll adjust as you add or subtract pages. Now I like to even put this even when I have 1 page. You know, if you have a pile of reports and you drop them on the floor, and you're trying to put them back together, I like to know that there's only 1 page in this particular report. All right, there's our built-in one we selected. It shows up here. Now, footer, header. The one we're going to use doesn't have a built-in one, so we click Custom. And this will open up a new dialog box. There's 3 sections to a header or a footer, and these buttons up here are awesome. Now, you can point to one and say, oh, that's a date, time, file path. Some people actually like the file path in their header or footer. That way they always know where to go and look this file up. I like to use the file name, and I usually name them smartly, like this is company name 2010. And then maybe I have the sheet names like February budget, January, February budget, whatever. So I like to link these. Let's go ahead and start over here. I'm going to say file name. And now I'm going to type something. That's the code there that it links it dynamically to the file name. But now I'm going to type something, space dash space. And then I'm going to click sheet name. All right, so that's the code for sheet name. Now I'm going to hit Tab to get to the center section. I'm going to do something similar. Date, space, dash, space, and then time. Those are dynamic. So every day you print it out, it'll have the new date, the new time. Now, if you don't want to hard code those in, then you would type it. So over here now we could type something like your name. So you can type, use code, and there we have it. Let's click OK. And there is our preview up there. Oh, that's so cool. All right, one final tab here is sheet, and there's a bunch of really cool things here. We'll look at one aspect here, and then when we get to our large spreadsheet, we'll look at some of these other things. Print area. Now notice this report over here, table, chart. I want those to print out, but not these. So this is the print area that will allow you to select just the cells you want. And I don't want to have to select them each time we saw in the print dialog box. I want it to print this way every time automatically. Anytime you see a dialog box like this, you love it. That means you can link this text box to the cells. So with it cursor flashing, I'm going to click here. Actually, I'm going to, since I can't quite get to the one I want, I'm going to click the collapse. Boop. And now I'm very carefully. Now I can't quite get to that cell right there, so I'm going to click, and now I'm going to use my arrow key. Just like we saw with formulas, putting a range of cells in a sum function, we use our arrow keys. Same thing here. Now watch this. The keyboard shortcut to jump to cell A1, which is the home cell in Excel, is Ctrl Home. But I won't have this cell selected, and I want it to jump up there and select everything. So I'm going to hold Control Shift and Home. Control Shift Home highlights everywhere from the selected cell up to the cell A1. Now I'm going to uncollapse this. Totally awesome. All right. Some other things, we'll come back and look at this in the at the end of this video. You could decide to print grid lines or not, black and white. Row and column headers. Sometimes for teachers, they like to show the row and column headers. Comments or cell errors, you have control over what gets printed. Print order, in just a minute, we'll see that we're going to have 2 reports on one page. And if you can determine how they print out. This one only has 1, so it wouldn't, this has no effect. All right, you ready? I'm going to click OK. All right, I'm going to Control P, and there it is. Ah, look at that. It's too big. We scaled it a little bit too much. Ooh, look it up here. That's not looking good either. So we're going to go back and use this button. Scaling, let's go ahead and scale it down. I'm going to do 125, and then I'm going to come over to the header and footer. Notice this header would actually work on a horizontal report, but not on this portrait report here. So I'm going to come up to Custom Header. And I'm actually going to get rid of this right here. Or actually, why don't we do this? We'll trick it. I'm going to Control X, which is cut. I'm going to come over here, Control V, and then type a space. So instead, I have this long piece here, and then I moved both of the pieces I wanted over into the right section. Now I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to click OK. Looking good. So we've adjusted those. We have this fitting. Absolutely beautiful. Now you can click the Print button. Now I'm going to click Escape to close this. And we have 2 more topics concerning page setup. Let's go over to the Store 2. Now I've already done some page setup here, so I'm going to Control P. And you can see I already have headers and footers centered and stuff like that. But what I really want is I want this to print out on one page and this to print out on another page. Not only that, but the one on the bottom I want on page 1, and the one on the top I want on page 2. There's an awesome trick to do this. I'm going to click Escape. In the page layout, there's Print Area. And for whatever reason, if you have 2 reports, you can highlight them using your Control selection trick. And the order in which you highlight them determines the page number. So if I highlight this one first, and then hold Control and highlight this one, no way, that just determined the page order. Now I come up here and I say Set Print Area, Page Layout Print Area, Set Print Area. And just like that, you can see the little outlines. Now I got to show you something else. Great. Under View, we can go to Page Break Preview. By the way, I'm not even talking about this. This is a new option. You can do your page layout in Page Layout View. But I showed you a different way. Page Break, but I love this. Page Break and I'm going to say, do not show this again. Click OK. And there it is. All the gray is not what's going to print out. The blue line means that's what's going to print. And there it is, page 1, page 2. I just love that trick. All right, now if you like this particular view and you want to decide what's printed and what's not, you can just drag. And notice, it'll give you previews of where the page breaks will be and which page numbers are which. I'm going to Control Z, Z. Let's just, for kicks, go back over here. And I'm going to do that same thing. View, Page Break. And now you can see all this stuff, even though it's all on the sheet, is not going to get printed. Actually, this trick here, where you have part of the page that prints and part of it that it does not print, is very common because people put notes or calculations out here, but the only part of the spreadsheet is going to be printed. Now I'm going to go back to normal. I'll go over here, leave that one there. I might as well go back to normal. Now let's do Control P. And sure enough, page 1 of 2. And look, the bottom table is on the first page. Now I'm going to click forward, and you can see down here that allows us to click forward. And now we see page 2. All right, I'm going to click Escape. One final really important trick for page setup. Here's an amortization table, and it is huge. I'm going to roll the wheel on my mouse. Oh, it just goes on and on and on. Amortization tables. What I would like is to have this print neatly on multiple pages. Not only that, but I would like to have this appear at the top of every page. Now, let's just go straight to Print Preview and look. And this is the type of report that people, they click the print button, or the old print button used to be up here. And then the report prints out terrible. Well, Control P, we can see, oh, if we just hit the print button, oh, and there's 16 pages. So that would be 16 pages wasted, right? But I'm going to click the forward arrow. And now, problem number 1. Sure, we see this part, but I don't see the headers that I want at the top. I'm going to click forward, 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 forward. Oh, look at this. It actually, that second column isn't fitting. So now I'm going to click Escape. No problem. Page setup will fix all of this. Now, the first thing I would like to do is I'd like to set the print area. So I'm going to highlight, and I'm actually going to use a keyboard shortcut. Notice if we were to click here and do Control asterisk on the number pad, it only highlights this table. So we have to, and I don't want to drag all the way down. So we're going to have to figure out a different way to highlight. So I'm going to highlight that, and now I'm going to hold Control Shift and down arrow one time and down arrow a second time. All right. Now I'm going to go up to Page Layout, Print Area, Set Print Area. Now, we can see that this prints out a little bit on page 2. And there's a great trick in the Page Setup dialog box that will fix this. So now I'm going to do Alt PSP. Now, the first thing is, yeah, we want landscape or portrait, right? Adjust to, that's not what we want. We want Fix to. And here's the trick. This is asking page wide, how many pages? And this is asking how many tall. Well, we want page 1 wide. We've set the print area, right? So it'll automatically take this little piece down here and scoot it out, because it's always going to fit the page to exactly 1 page wide. But what about this? Well, we don't know how many pages, and I certainly don't want to count them. So you simply highlight it and delete it. That's it. When you leave it blank, not a 0, don't put a 0 there. If you leave it blank, it'll just keep going, and print out however many pages there are. So that's a great trick for large spreadsheet. We fitted it wide, but we didn't say anything about tall. Now I'm going to go over to margins. I'm going to click horizontal. I'm going to go to headers and footers, and that's where this footer down here, pages 1 of however many, is very important. I'm going to do custom header. I'll do this in fast speed mode. I'm going to do file name, sheet tab name, and date right across the top. Click OK. Finally, sheet. And this is where you can see we already set the print area, so it's listed there. But rows to repeat at top, columns to repeat at the left. I'm going to click here and highlight. I'm going to click on the 4, and it says give me a 4. Now, even if you try to highlight just the cells, it's not going to do that. So it's always going to give you just the row. I'm sorry, excuse me. Rows to repeat at top. Perfect example here. An example for columns to repeat at the left is if you had a bunch of people's names and the table was horizontally and huge. And so every page needed to have the names. All right. I'm going to click. Again, this one doesn't matter because we only have the pages going down. All right. I'm going to click OK. Notice when we didn't do page setup, it went all the way down, and then when it went back up to the top and showed it that way. All right. I'm going to click OK. Control P for print preview. Oh, that's looking beautiful up there. Nice there. Ooh, 8 pages. So we've reduced it down to 8. I see this on the first page, right? Everything. I'm going to click Next. And no way, there's the row repeated at the top. And notice our sum is fitting on this page. As I go forward, absolutely perfect. All right, you can also use your scroll thing here. I'm going to click Escape to close this, and Control S, I guess. And that is page setup. That's a lot about page setup, but that covers most circumstances for people printing out reports. All right, our last video for chapter 4 will come next video. It's about a little short one about cell styles. All right, see you next video.